40th floor. A maintenance worker stood in front of the most powerful woman in the city. His uniform was stained with oil and dust from the building's hidden machines. Her office was all glass, marble, and quiet power. Whitfield Tower felt like a world that did not belong to someone like him. Sloane Whitfield had not summoned anyone to her private office in 3 years. Not like this. Not with that sharp, haunted look in her eyes. Then she asked him the question that had already started spreading through the building like wildfire. Why does your daughter call me mommy? The words landed like cold water. They were simple, but they cut deep. By now, everyone had heard what happened in the elevator. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, had shouted mommy in a crowded space. She had reached for the CEO, who was famous for never smiling. A woman people whispered about, as if she were made of ice. But Cole Harrison did not flinch. He did not look away. He studied the woman behind the desk, the woman whose hands shook even while she tried to hide it. And he answered with the only truth he had. Because she doesn't know what a mother looks like. She only knows what a mother feels like. For a moment, Sloane Whitfield could not speak. And what happened next would pull them both apart, then somehow begin to put them back together. Cole had worked nights at Whitfield Tower for almost 2 years. Most people in the city had no idea what the building looked like after dark, when the offices were empty and the hallways turned quiet and cold. But Cole knew. He pushed a heavy cart along shining marble floors long after the last executives went home. He cleaned. He repaired. He fixed what broke. He did the work no one praised, the work people only noticed when it did not get done. The pay was $12 an hour. It was not much. It barely covered rent, groceries, and the small costs that kept showing up like weeds. But the job came with something more valuable than money. It came with flexibility. His supervisor, a tired man named Doug, had eyes that suggested he had seen too much life to judge anyone else. Doug did not ask many questions. He just cared that the work got done, and the building stayed running. Doug let Cole clock in at 6 in the evening and clock out at 2 in the morning. That schedule mattered. It meant Cole could pick up his daughter from kindergarten at 3. He could spend the afternoon with her, feed her dinner, help her wash up, get her into pajamas, and settle her down before he left for work. It was not perfect. Nothing had been perfect since Meredith Harrison died. But it was enough to keep them from sinking. And some days, enough was all Cole could ask for. The hard part was the gaps. Rosie's babysitter, a retired teacher named Mrs. Finley, lived 2 doors down. She had been steady and kind for 18 months. She treated Rosie like a grandchild. She made simple dinners and told stories and made sure Rosie brushed her teeth. She was reliable, the kind of help Cole prayed for. Then Mrs. Finley's sister in Florida got sick. Everything changed overnight. Suddenly Cole stared at a calendar full of empty spots. Nights he had no one to watch Rosie. Hours he had to work and no safe place to leave his child. He tried to solve it. He asked other neighbors. He asked around at church. He looked for daycare programs. He even paid a teenager down the block who promised she was great with kids. Nothing lasted. The neighbors had their own lives and their own responsibilities. The church daycare closed at 5, long before Cole's shift. The teenager spent more time staring at her phone than watching Rosie. So when there was no one else, Cole did the only thing he could. He brought Rosie to work. Deep in the basement of Whitfield Tower, next to the mechanical systems, there was a storage room. It was cramped and dusty, filled with old office chairs, broken desks, and boxes of forgotten files. Cole cleaned a corner and dragged in a small couch months earlier. The couch was faded, the cushions thin, and it carried a mild smell of dust that never fully left. Rosie called it her secret fort. She would curl up there with her stuffed bear, a worn-out toy named Mr. Buttons. The bear had been washed so many times his fur lay flat and rough. Rosie loved him anyway, the way children love something not because it is perfect, but because it has stayed. She would draw pictures until sleep took her. Cole checked on her every 30 minutes. Each time he opened that storage room door, his heart tightened like a fist. He would listen for her breathing. He would watch her chest rise and fall. Only then could he keep working. The guilt never left him. A 5-year-old should not spend nights in a basement. But the other option was worse. No job meant no rent. No rent meant losing their apartment. Losing the apartment meant no stability, no food on the table, no way to keep Rosie safe. Rosie never complained. That was what hurt Cole the most. She treated those nights like adventures. She whispered to Mr. Buttons about the castle they were exploring. She asked Cole if dragons lived near the boiler room. She turned ugly things into games, as if she could paint bright colors over the dark parts of life. She had her mother's imagination. And she had her mother's eyes too. Wide, brown, and full of a light that seemed impossible in a child who had already lost so much. Some nights, Cole would look at her asleep on that old couch. Her pink shoes were often still on because she refused to take them off. And something inside his chest would crack. Those shoes. Meredith had bought them 2 weeks before the accident. They were too small now. They pinched Rosie's toes. Cole had tried to replace them more than once, bringing home new shoes in brighter colors, shoes that would actually fit. Rosie would shake her head and cling to the old pair. Mommy picked these, she would say, as if that settled everything. And maybe it did. The question started about a year after Meredith died. Rosie was 3 then, old enough to notice patterns in the world. old enough to see other children at daycare being picked up by someone they called mommy. She saw moms braiding hair, kissing scraped knees, holding hands in parking lots, lifting kids into car seats. One night, Rosie tugged at Cole's sleeve. "Daddy, what does a mommy do?" Cole froze. How do you explain a mother to a child who will never remember hers? Pictures did not help. Rosie did not recognize Meredith in photographs. She could not connect that smiling face to anything real in her own mind. Meredith looked like a stranger to her. So Cole explained the only way he could. He told Rosie what a mother does. A mother is the person who kneels down when you fall. A mother ties your shoes and checks them twice, because once is never enough. A mother looks at you like you are the most important thing in the world. A mother smiles just because she sees your face. A mother is warmth, safety, the feeling that you matter. Rosie listened carefully. She nodded slowly, as if she was building a map in her head. And from that day, she searched for her mother everywhere. The first time Sloan Whitfield saw Rosie, it was 11 at night on a Tuesday. Sloan had stayed late at the office to review contracts. She stayed late most nights. Work was easier than home. Work was numbers, schedules, and control. Home was an empty penthouse filled with silence and memories she could not face. That night, the elevator doors opened to the parking garage. And there, sitting cross-legged on the concrete floor with crayons scattered around her, was a child. Sloan stopped breathing for a second. The girl could not have been older than 5. Her brown hair was messy, pulled into a lopsided ponytail. She wore pink shoes that looked too small for her feet. She hummed a tune with no clear melody, completely absorbed in her drawing. She did not look up until Sloan's heels clicked on the floor. "Hello," the girl said brightly, like it was perfectly normal to meet a stranger in a garage at 11 at night. Her eyes were wide and curious. She was not afraid. Sloan could not answer. Her gaze locked on those pink shoes. The toes were scuffed. The straps were fraying. The shade of pink was the exact bubblegum color Sloan remembered from her own past. For 3 seconds, time stretched. Sloan could not move. She could not breathe. She could only stare and feel something split open inside her chest. Then she turned and walked away, her heels too loud in the empty garage. Her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped her keys. She told herself she would not go back. She told herself it was nothing. Just a child. Just coincidence. Just a pair of shoes. But the next night, Sloan found herself leaving her office again around 11. And the night after that. The girl was not always there. Some nights the basement hallway was empty, and Sloan felt something she refused to name. Something close to disappointment. But when the girl was there, Sloan slowed her steps. She let her eyes linger on the small figure with crayons and a stuffed bear and the pink shoes. She did not speak. She did not come close. She only watched from a distance, like someone watching a fire while fearing the warmth might burn. On the 4th night, the girl noticed her. "Hello, elevator lady," the child called out, waving with a crayon still in her fist. Sloan nodded stiffly and kept walking. But something inside her shifted. A wall she had built for years developed a crack. On the 5th night, the girl was crying. Small hiccuping sobs echoed off the concrete. She sat in a corner with her knees pulled to her chest. Her face was buried in the rough fur of Mr. Buttons. The basement lights had flickered. Some electrical glitch lasted only about 10 seconds. But in a basement, 10 seconds of darkness can feel endless. Sloan stood about 20 feet away, with her hand pressed against the cold wall. She watched the child shake with fear. She did not go to her. She told herself she could not. But she stayed until the crying slowed, until the girl lifted her head and saw Sloan standing in the shadow. "Are you scared of the dark too?" the girl asked in a trembling voice. Sloan's throat tightened. "Yes," she heard herself say. It was the first word she had spoken to the child. And it was not a lie. She was terrified of the dark, not the absence of light, but the darkness that had lived inside her for 3 years. The shadows that arrived whenever she stopped moving long enough to feel what she had been avoiding. The 6th night changed everything. The girl struggled with her shoes. The straps had finally failed, and Cole had replaced them with laces. But Rosie's little fingers could not manage the knot. She tugged and pulled, her face tight with frustration. Then she tripped. It was not a terrible fall. Her knees hit the concrete. Her palms scraped the rough surface. But the sound she made, that small cry of surprise and pain, cut through Sloan like a knife. Before Sloan could stop herself, she moved. Her heels clicked fast. Her expensive suit rustled as she dropped to her knees. The hands that signed billion-dollar contracts, the hands that built an empire, reached gently for the child's shoe. "Let me," Sloan said quietly. She tied the laces slowly, carefully, methodically, the way she used to do every morning for her own child before school. When she finished, she tugged the laces once. Then she tugged again. Once was never enough. That was what her daughter had always said, laughing as Sloan double-checked the knot. Sloan's fingers trembled as she set the child's foot back on the ground. The girl looked up into Sloan's face and asked with innocent calm, "Are you a mommy?" The question hit Sloan like a blow. For a moment she forgot how to breathe. She stood up too quickly, knees protesting, heart slamming against her ribs. She did not answer. She turned and walked away almost running. Her heels struck the concrete like gunshots. Behind her, the girl called out, but Sloane did not stop. She could not stop. A week later, it happened in the elevator. Sloane had just come out of a board meeting. Her mind was full of numbers, strategies, and projections. She stepped into the elevator with a few executives, 2 assistants, and a security guard. On the lobby level, the doors opened again. A maintenance worker stepped in, pushing a cart, and with him was a little girl. Rosie saw Sloane, and her face lit up like sunrise. She pointed straight at Sloane and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Mommy!" The elevator went silent. Everyone stared. Sloane felt the blood drain from her face. The maintenance worker looked horrified. He grabbed his daughter's hand and whispered something urgent. But Rosie was not listening. She leaned toward Sloane with joy, as if she had found something precious she thought she had lost. "Mommy, you came back," her eyes seemed to say, even if her mouth did not speak every word. The doors opened at the next floor. Sloane fled. She did not remember pressing the button. She did not remember pushing past the staring faces. She only remembered locking herself in her office and sliding her back against the door, chest heaving. The word echoed inside her like a scream. Mommy. Nobody had called her that in 3 years. Nobody would ever call her that again. Because her daughter was gone. Wren was buried in a cemetery across town, wearing her favorite pink shoes, because Sloane could not bear to see them sitting empty in a closet. By noon the next day, whispers filled every floor of Whitfield Tower. The CEO and the maintenance worker. The Ice Queen and the mystery child. Sloane heard fragments everywhere. Conversations stopped when she approached. Assistants glanced at her, then away, as if pity was leaking through their professionalism. Sloane noticed everything. She always had. She hated the new look people gave her now. Not fear. Not respect. Curiosity. Pity. Questions she could not answer because she did not understand them herself. That afternoon, she called her head of HR. Find out who the maintenance worker is, the one with the daughter. I want his name and his file. Everything. Her voice was cold, the voice she used for hostile negotiations. Within an hour the file arrived. Cole Harrison, 38. Widower. 1 daughter, age 5. Night shift maintenance. Strong performance reviews. No complaints. Sloane stared at the photo clipped to the file. A man with a strong jaw and tired eyes. The kind of tired that comes from carrying grief and responsibility at the same time. She recognized something in his eyes. She had seen that same look in her own mirror for 3 years. Bring him to my office, she told her assistant. Now. Cole had never been above the 20th floor. When the elevator climbed, the numbers felt like a countdown to punishment. He had scrubbed his hands in the basement bathroom 3 times, but he still felt grease under his nails. Invisible proof of where he belonged, and where he did not. The doors opened to a reception area that looked like wealth turned into stone. Marble floors. Crystal lights. A view of the city that made everything below look small. The assistant did not meet his eyes. She pointed to a door at the end of the hall and left. Inside, Sloane Whitfield stood behind her desk like a commander ready for war. She was taller than Cole expected. Her cheekbones were sharp. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight. Her suit looked like it cost more than his car. Her eyes were gray, like winter storms. Cole had seen those eyes in the portraits in the lobby. But in person, they were different. In person, there was something behind the cold surface. Something wounded. Something trying not to show weakness. Mr. Harrison, Sloane said in a clipped, professional tone. Do you know why you are here? Cole swallowed. I have an idea, ma'am. Your daughter, Sloane said, like the word hurt her mouth. She has been coming to work with you. That breaks policy and every safety regulation this building has. Yes, ma'am. I know. I'm sorry. I am not interested in apologies, Sloane cut in. I am interested in an explanation. Then she asked again, slower, as if forcing herself to say it. Why does your daughter call me mommy? There it was. The question Cole had feared since the elevator. He could lie. He could say Rosie was confused, that she called many people mommy, that it meant nothing. But Cole looked at Sloane standing there in her armor of power, and he noticed the tremble she tried to hide, the tightness in her jaw, the way her eyes flicked again and again to a shelf behind her. On that shelf was a glass case. Inside it, something pink. You think I told her to do it, Cole said quietly. It was not a question, Sloane replied. The thought crossed my mind. Her voice was sharp, but brittle, like glass under pressure. A single father working night shift, barely getting by. Then suddenly his daughter calls the CEO of a $2 billion company mommy in front of witnesses. That is quite a coincidence. Something rose in Cole's chest. Not anger exactly. Protectiveness. Pride. Ma'am, with respect, I didn't even know who you were until last week. Rosie calls you mommy because she thinks you are one. That is the only explanation I have. That is ridiculous, Sloane snapped. I have barely spoken to the child. I know, Cole said. That is what makes it complicated. Cole glanced at the glass case again. The tiny pink shoes inside. Understanding settled cold in his stomach. Do you know how my daughter defines mommy, Ms. Whitfield? Sloane's expression flickered. What? Cole's voice steadied, the way it did when he read bedtime stories. Her mother died 3 years ago. A car accident. Rosie was 2. She does not remember her. No memories, no face, nothing. So, I couldn't explain what a mommy looks like. I had to explain what a mommy does. Cole continued, careful but honest. I told her a mommy is someone who kneels down when you fall. Someone who ties your shoes and checks twice because once is never enough. Someone who looks at you like you are the most important thing in the room. Someone who smiles when they see you, even when everything else is falling apart. Sloane's face went pale. Her hand gripped the edge of the desk like it was the only thing keeping her standing. Rosie's been looking for a mommy ever since, Cole said. She called her preschool teacher mommy once. She called our neighbor, Mrs. Finley, mommy twice. Every time they corrected her, and she accepted it. Cole met Sloane's eyes. But with you, she won't accept it. With you, she is sure. And I didn't understand why until I watched you in the garage that night. What night? Sloane whispered. The night she fell. The night you tied her shoes. Cole stepped forward, then stopped himself, keeping distance. You knelt down to her level. You tied the laces slowly, carefully. Then you tugged on them twice. And when you looked at her, Cole's voice cracked slightly. Your face changed. You smiled. I don't think you even knew you did it. But Rosie saw it. And that was enough. Sloane pressed her hand to her throat, as if checking whether she could still breathe. I didn't smile, she said. I don't smile. You did, Cole replied gently. You haven't smiled in 3 years. Everyone in the building knows it. People call you the Ice Queen when they think you cannot hear. But you smiled at my daughter. And she felt it. Kids don't understand masks the way adults do. They don't see the walls we build. They just see the cracks. Silence filled the room. Only the soft hum of air conditioning remained, and the distant murmur of the city. Sloane's control began to break at the edges. Her lip trembled. Her eyes shined with something gathering. Then she spoke again, her voice hollow and strange. Those shoes. The pink ones she wears. Where did you get them? Cole blinked, surprised. My wife bought them before she died. Rosie won't take them off even though they're too small. She says they're special because her mommy picked them. Sloane made a small sound, like pain escaping without permission. She turned away and walked to the shelf. She stood with her back to Cole, fingers pressed against the glass case. When she spoke, her voice was barely there. My daughter had shoes like that. Same color. Same style. She was wearing them when she died. The words hung in the air. Cole felt as if the floor shifted. I didn't know, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Don't, Sloane whispered, voice cracking. Don't apologize. You didn't know. You couldn't have known. Her fingers traced the glass as if trying to touch what was inside without opening it. Ren. That was her name. She was 5. She loved elevators. She loved waving at strangers. She loved when I tied her shoes. She always said once wasn't enough. She made me do it twice every time. Cole closed his eyes. The coincidence was too sharp, too painful to feel random. 2 daughters, both 5. 2 mothers gone. 2 pairs of pink shoes. And somehow these pieces had collided in the basement of a tower that rose into the sky. I want to see the drawing, Sloane said suddenly. Cole nodded. I can bring it. Just bring it, Sloane said, still facing the shelf. Then her voice softened into something Cole had not expected from her. Please. The drawing was in crayon. The colors were bright and a little smudged where small fingers pressed too hard. 3 figures. 1 tall stick figure with brown hair labeled Daddy. A smaller figure with a triangle dress labeled Me. A third figure stood inside a rectangle with buttons on the side. An elevator. The third figure had yellow hair and a red mouth shaped into a smile. Underneath, in wobbly kindergarten letters, was one word. Mommy. Sloane held the drawing like it could break if she breathed too hard. Her fingers shook at the edges. She stared at the smiling face, the yellow hair, the red mouth. And something in her collapsed. Not loudly. Not with drama. Quietly. A slow fall of walls that had stood for years. She drew me smiling, Sloane whispered. She draws what she sees, Cole said. Or what she feels, Sloane asked, voice thin. I haven't smiled in 3 years. Not once. Not for anyone. Sloane looked up. Her eyes were wet now. Not fully crying yet, but shining. How did she see it? Because you did smile, Cole said. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you didn't notice, but you did. And Rosie felt it. Kids see what we try to hide, he continued. They see the soft parts we bury. Sloane set the drawing on her desk with careful hands, as if placing something sacred. Her hands were shaking openly now. She walked to the window and rested her forehead against the cold glass. The city below looked like a kingdom she owned but no longer wanted. Why does your daughter call me Mommy? Sloane asked again. This time the question sounded different. Softer. Broken. Cole stepped closer, then stopped at a respectful distance. Because she doesn't know what a mother looks like, he repeated. Her mother died when she was 2. She has no memory. So I told her what a mother does. A mother kneels down when you fall. A mother ties your shoes and checks twice. A mother looks at you like you matter more than anything else in the room. A mother smiles when she sees you, even when she is tired and hurting. Cole's voice lowered. And somehow, in a building where most people don't even know her name, you did all of that. You are the first person outside of me who made my daughter feel like she mattered. Sloane's shoulders began to shake. She pressed her hand to the window as if the glass could keep her from collapsing. So when she calls you mommy, Cole said, she is not confused. She is not being used. She is not lying. She is calling you what you feel like to her. She is calling you the definition of that word. Sloane turned around. Tears streamed down her face now, cutting through perfect makeup and dripping onto the collar of her expensive blouse. She did not wipe them away. For the first time in 3 years, she let herself be seen. I stopped being a mother the day Rin died, she said. Her voice sounded wrecked. I stopped being anything. I just became this. She gestured at the office. The glass. The steel. The empire. I thought if I built enough and worked enough and controlled enough, I could fill the hole. But it never filled. It just got darker. She walked back to the shelf and lifted the glass case. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was the first time in 3 years. Inside, the tiny pink shoes were perfectly preserved, untouched by time. She lifted one shoe and held it in her palm like a wounded bird. She was wearing these when the car hit, Sloane said. I was supposed to pick her up from school, but I had a meeting. I sent the nanny instead. The truck ran a red light. Her voice broke. They let me keep the shoes. I don't know why. Maybe they thought it would help. It didn't. Cole did not speak. There was nothing he could say that would repair that kind of grief. He only stood there and let the truth exist in the air, finally allowed out of its locked box. Your daughter, Sloane continued, voice raw. She looked at me like I was someone worth seeing. Not just the CEO. Not just the woman who signs checks. She looked at me like I was human. Like I was still something. She couldn't finish the sentence. Like you were her mother, Cole said softly. Sloane nodded, tears falling. I haven't been looked at like that since Ren. I didn't even know I still remembered what it felt like. But your daughter looked at me, and it woke something up. She pressed the shoe to her chest. She saw something in me I thought was dead. She called it by name. Silence settled again, heavier this time. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware. Then Cole spoke carefully. I don't want to replace Ren. And I don't want you to replace Meredith. That isn't what this is. Then what is it? Sloane asked. Cole looked at the drawing on the desk. The smiling figure in the elevator. I don't know, he admitted. But my daughter hasn't been that happy since her mother died. And I think there's a reason she found you. I don't know if I believe in fate. I don't know if I believe in God like some people do. But I believe in her. And she believes in you. Sloane set the shoe back inside the case, but she did not close the lid. She left it open, letting air touch the shoes for the first time in years. A small act. A beginning. I don't know how to do this, Sloane confessed. I don't know how to be around kids anymore. I don't know how to be around anyone. Neither do I, Cole said. Honestly, I've been faking it for 3 years. Some nights I lock myself in the bathroom and cry so Rosie won't hear. Some mornings I can barely get out of bed. But I get up anyway because she needs me. Cole met Sloane's eyes. Maybe that is all anyone can do. Get up anyway. Sloane wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing mascara, looking suddenly younger and fragile, nothing like the ice queen the building feared. I'd like to see her again, Sloane said quietly. Properly this time. Not in a parking garage at midnight. Not running away. She took a shaky breath. I don't know what I can give her. I don't know what I can be. But I would like to try if you'll let me. Cole thought of Rosie. Of her drawings. Of the way she talked about the elevator lady. He thought of what it might mean to give Rosie something he could not give alone. Not a replacement mother. Something different. Something that did not have a name yet. She has soccer practice on Saturday mornings, Cole said. The field behind the elementary school on 8th Street. Game starts at 10. Sloane's eyes widened. You want me to come? I want you to decide if you want to come, Cole replied. He picked up the drawing, looked at it once more, then placed it back on Sloane's desk. This is yours. She would want you to have it. Cole turned to leave, then paused at the door. Ms. Whitfield. Sloane's voice came soft. Just Sloane. Cole nodded. Sloane. For what it is worth, I don't think it is an accident that she found you. And I don't think you smiled by accident either. Maybe some part of you has been waiting to be found. Cole left before Sloane could answer. The elevator carried him down to the basement, back to the cart and the tools, back to the storage room where Rosie was probably awake by now, wondering where he went. But something had shifted. The weight on his shoulders did not feel lighter, exactly. It felt shared. For the first time in 3 years, Cole did not feel completely alone. Saturday morning arrived. The soccer field was chaos. Small children in oversized jerseys chased the ball in confused circles. Parents lined the sidelines with folding chairs and coffee cups. Nobody kept score. The goal was mostly to run and laugh, and not cry too hard when someone tripped. Cole stood near the bleachers, watching Rosie spin in circles that had nothing to do with soccer. Her ponytail bounced. Her pink shoes flashed against the green grass. Last week, she had finally let Cole replace the straps with proper laces. A small victory. At 10:15, a black car rolled into the parking lot. It was the kind of car that did not belong here. Sleek, tinted, expensive. Cole watched the door open. Sloane stepped out. She was not wearing her power suit. She wore jeans, a simple white blouse, and flat shoes. Her hair was down, soft waves instead of a tight twist. She looked different. Softer. And terrified. She walked toward the field slowly, like each step was a question. Cole raised a hand. Sloane nodded back. She still did not smile, not yet. She looked too nervous to smile. Cole understood. This was not a boardroom. There were no contracts here. No rules she could control. This was something harder. This was showing up. Rosie did not see her at first. She was chasing a butterfly, ignoring the ball completely. Then someone cheered, and Rosie looked up toward the sidelines. Her whole face changed. "You came back," Rosie yelled. She sprinted across the field, dodging other kids like they were cones. Her coach shouted something confused behind her, but Rosie did not stop. She hit Sloane at full speed and wrapped her arms around Sloane's legs. Sloane froze. Her hands hovered in the air, unsure. Cole watched, heart tight. He saw Sloane's war with herself. The fear, the grief, the hope. Then Sloane's hands lowered slowly. She rested them on Rosie's back, gentle and careful. "I came back," Sloane whispered. Rosie looked up, eyes shining. "Are you going to watch me play?" "Yes," Sloane said, voice cracking. "I'm going to watch you." Rosie grinned with bright trust, then grabbed Sloane's hand and tugged her toward Cole. "Come sit with Daddy. He brings the good juice boxes." Sloane let herself be pulled. She sat on the grass beside Cole, shoulders nearly touching. They watched a soccer game where most of the kids did not know the rules. Rosie waved at them constantly and forgot the ball whenever she wanted to make sure they were still watching. Cole and Sloane did not talk much. There was not much to say yet. But when Rosie accidentally scored her first goal, she was trying to kick a dandelion. Both Cole and Sloane jumped up. Both cheered. Both clapped until their hands hurt. Rosie ran toward them, arms raised in triumph. Sloane knelt down to meet her at eye level. "You did it," Sloane said. Rosie threw her arms around Sloane's neck. "Did you see? Did you see?" "I saw everything," Sloane said. For a moment they stayed like that. A child who had been looking for something. A woman who was beginning to remember what it felt like to be found. When Sloane stood up, her eyes were wet. But she was smiling. Actually smiling. The first real smile she had allowed herself in 3 years. Cole pretended not to notice. He handed her a juice box instead. Apple or grape. Sloane blinked, surprised by the normal choice, and then she laughed. It sounded rusty, like a door that had not opened in a long time. "Apple," she said. "Thank you." They sat back down and watched the rest of the game in quiet comfort. And something that had been broken for a very long time began, slowly, to mend. 6 months later, Saturday dinners had become a tradition. Every week Sloane drove her expensive car to Cole's small apartment. The building's elevator was broken more often than it worked. Sloane climbed the stairs without complaint. She brought groceries because Cole would not accept anything else. Sloane learned to make spaghetti because it was Rosie's favorite. The kitchen was too small for 3 people, but they made it work. They bumped elbows, stepped on each other's feet, and laughed at the mess. Rosie did not call Sloane Mommy anymore. The word had changed over weeks. First it became Miss Sloane. Then it shortened into Slow, a nickname that made Sloane smile every time she heard it. "Slow, watch this. Slow, try my drawing. Slow, can you do my hair like yours?" Small requests. Ordinary moments. The pieces of a relationship that did not need a perfect label to be real. Tonight, Sloane knelt in the hallway, helping Rosie tie her shoes before bed. The pink shoes had finally been retired. They were placed in a special box in Rosie's closet, beside a photograph of Meredith. The new shoes were purple, chosen after 2 hours at the store and serious thought. Sloane tied the laces slowly. Then she tugged once. Then she tugged again. "Slow," Rosie asked, voice sleepy but curious. "Why do you always tie them twice?" Sloane paused, fingers resting on the knot. She looked up at Rosie, at this child who had reached through 3 years of ice and found the person buried underneath. Then she looked at Cole standing in the doorway of the kitchen, watching. Cole nodded once. A small permission. A shared understanding. "Because once is never enough, sweetheart," Sloane said softly. "Someone taught me that a long time ago. Now I'm teaching you." Rosie nodded seriously like this made perfect sense. Then she hugged Sloane goodnight and padded off to bed, purple shoes perfectly tied. 2 adults remained in the hallway of a small apartment that somehow felt bigger than any penthouse. Cole walked Sloane to the door at 9:30, as he did every Saturday. Sloane held her keys, but did not leave right away. She lingered like she was afraid the moment would disappear if she stepped away. "Rosie left something for you," Cole said, holding up a folded piece of paper. "She said to give it to you when you were leaving." Sloane took the paper with careful hands. She unfolded it under the hallway light and went still. It was a drawing. 3 figures holding hands on green grass under a yellow sun. The tall figure on the left had brown hair, labeled Daddy. The small figure in the middle wore purple and was labeled Me. The third figure on the right had yellow hair and a smile. This time she was not stuck inside an elevator rectangle. She stood beside them. Under the figures, in Rosie's improving handwriting, were 3 words. Not Mommy. Better. Sloane made a sound that was half laugh and half sob. She pressed the drawing against her chest. "Better," she repeated softly. "I think I like that." Cole smiled. "She worked on it all week. Made me promise I wouldn't peek." Sloane traced the crayon figures with her finger, the linked hands, the bright sun. "What does better mean?" she asked. Cole thought about it. A child's logic could be simple and deep at the same time. I think it means you are not trying to be someone else, Cole said. You are not trying to replace anyone. You're just you. And to her, that is better than any label. Sloane folded the drawing and placed it in her purse beside her phone and wallet, beside the tools of her powerful life. Tomorrow she would frame it. It would hang in her office near the glass case with Ren's shoes, two painful memories from two different lives sharing space in the same room. Same time next Saturday, Sloane asked. Same time every Saturday, Cole said. Sloane nodded and stepped into the hallway. Then she turned back. Cole, thank you for letting me be part of this. Whatever this is. Cole leaned against the door frame, tired but steady. Thank you for showing up, he said. That's the hardest part. The showing up. Sloane smiled again. A real smile that reached her eyes and stayed there. I'm learning, she said. She drove home through quiet streets. The city had a late-night silence that felt different now. The drawing sat on the passenger seat, three crayon figures holding hands under a sun. At a red light, Sloane looked at the word again. Better. Not a replacement. Not a copy. Something new. The light turned green and she drove on. For the first time in 3 years, she did not dread going home. The penthouse would still be empty when she arrived. The silence would still echo. Memories would still wait in corners. But something had changed. The darkness did not feel as absolute. The quiet did not feel as final. Because somewhere across the city, in a small apartment with a broken elevator, there was a child who believed Sloane was worth something. A child who did not see an ice queen. A child who saw a person. Someone worth drawing. Someone worth naming. Someone better. Sloane Whitfield smiled alone in her car near 11 at night, tears on her cheeks that felt less like an enemy now and more like proof that she could still feel. The ice was melting. And next Saturday, she would show up again. Because once was never enough.